Morant would be away from the team for at least 2 games after he appeared to display a gun in an Instagram live.
No one in the West.
Nah, I'm fine in the West.
They know everything.
There's no excuse for what he did. But remember, he pressed the button on his phone. He went live. You don't go live, nobody knows he has a weapon, we're not talking about this.
A person can't get the help he or she needs if all people does is make excuses for them.
The Memphis Grizzlies select Morant.
Morant. Oh! A jawbreaker!
Most improved player of the year.
Yes, sir!
But I know something about you. You went to Cranbrook. That's a private school.
I've waited for more details of the Morant situation to come out before I actually made a video because I feel like sometimes the media can fabricate things. But it's gotten to the point where I think we have a basis of what's actually going on, and I have a lot to say. Less than a week ago, there was an Instagram live where Morant was flexing a gun, and the timing of this could not be any worse. This season, a lot of events have happened with Morant where we've started to question his character. We knew Morant was someone who would talk shit, but so was the whole Grizzlies team. They're young and they were fun to watch. Whether you love or hate that team, I think we can all admit it's not necessarily a bad thing. But these reports of Morant that have been coming out are very alarming. But I want to look into this. Is this Morant stuff being blown out of proportion, or does something need to happen? This is the Morant experience. Demetrius Jamal Morant was born on August 10th, 1999. He was born in South Carolina to his parents T and Jamie Morant. His mom was an athlete, she was a talented point guard and a softball player in college, and his father was actually teammates with Ray Allen on the basketball team. T. Morant was a solid player who actually played a little bit of semi-ball, however he considered moving overseas to advance his career, but when his wife had been pregnant, he decided to stay in the US. Now, I'm sure you've seen those videos of Morant doing a lot of training when he was younger, and it's actually pretty impressive. The more famous Ja's gotten, the more we've started to realize how he was able to have such a high vertical. Morant would train in his backyard with his father, who taught him step back jump shots and bought tractor ties for him to practice jumping and soft landing. Now, Morant actually played some AAU basketball with the South Carolina Hornets. Ironically, this is the same team where he'd be teaming up with Zion Williamson. Eventually, when it would be time for high school, he would attend Crestwood High School in Sumter, South Carolina. Now, a common misconception about Morant's upbringing is that he went to a private school. I'm sure you've seen the popular TikTok involving the 8 Mile scene.
About you went to Cranbrook. That's a private school.
Now, after doing some research, it turns out the same Crestwood High School that Morant went to in South Carolina is actually a public school. There are actually some people that do believe he went to a private school, but I can assure you this is a public school. It's more than likely whoever made the TikTok was just trying to make it fit the TikTok, which makes sense, but I can assure you that Crestwood is a public school. In his time at Crestwood, Morant would average 27, 8, and 8, and he'd be a 3-time All-Region MVP. Unfortunately, Morant was not good enough to be ranked by recruiting services. Now, he did get an offer from South Carolina, which is a good school, but you're gonna see why he waited to take that offer. Now, there was a story about how Morant was accidentally discovered by Murray State. An assistant coach by the name of James Kane attended a camp hoping to see some players who could join the team. While looking for his snack, which actually turned out to be a bag of Doritos, he noticed Morant playing some 3-on-3 in an auxiliary gym. Impressed, he contacted head coach Matt McCann, who soon offered Morant a scholarship. It was then on September 3rd, 2016 that Morant would commit to playing for Murray State. His father said, "Every parent wants their child to play at a big-time program, but what I realized is don't go where you want to be, go where they want you." And he's right, some talented players will go to these D1 schools but get no playing time. The unfortunate reality is that there are some talented basketball players out there, but they're never going to get the opportunity they deserve. And trust me, Morant's decision to play for a mid-level school like Murray State was going to pay off. He had a solid freshman year, averaging about 13, 6, and 6, but it wasn't nothing special. However, in his sophomore year, things would start to change. For one, he was averaging about 25, 10, and 6, but it was also highlight play after highlight play that would make him so famous. It was primarily his dunks that would get him on ESPN that got people talking, and the more people were talking about him, the more people were invested into Murray State. And Morant, he did not disappoint. Somehow, Morant was able to get this Murray State team into March Madness. In a first-round matchup versus Marquette, that Ja Morant would post a triple-double, which would actually make NCAA history. Not only did he record a triple-double, but Murray State would beat Marquette and move on to the second round. Unfortunately, the March Madness story would end right there, as number 4 Florida would dominate them in the next game. However, Ja Morant did have 28. Following Murray State's loss in the 2019 men's basketball tournament, Ja Morant would announce his intention to forego his final 2 seasons of college eligibility and declare for the 2019 NBA draft. Ja Morant came into Murray State as a kid that wanted to show what he could do, and he did just that. In fact, I would argue he put Murray State on the planet. In fact, I'd argue he's the only good thing about Murray State, considering that the school is no longer D1. Regardless, Ja Morant is going to go down in history as a Murray State legend. Now, Ja Morant was a highly ranked player in the 2019 NBA draft, but people didn't think he was going to go number 1. The number 1 pick that year, Zion Williamson, was arguably one of the most hyped up prospects ever since LeBron James of all people. Like Ja Morant, he was a high-flying dunker, and he was also able to grow a pretty big social media following, which is why with the first pick of the 2019 NBA draft, the New Orleans Pelicans would select Zion Williamson. But it was after Zion would get drafted, history would be made.
With the second pick in the 2019 NBA draft, the Memphis Grizzlies select Ja Morant.
It had been very clear at that moment that the Memphis Grizzlies were going to be a team that were going to dominate in these upcoming years. Ja Morant would sign a rookie contract of 4 years, $40 million. And yes, this information is going to be relevant later in this video. Ja Morant had a pretty good rookie season. He averaged about 8 and 7, he was the rookie of the year, and he also earned an all-rookie first-team honor. And from that season, I think a lot of people could tell that Ja Morant was going to be a special player. Unfortunately, for the first pick of that year's draft, Zion Williamson, he was injured a majority of the season, and the conversation started to become, will Ja Morant be a better player than Zion? A conversation that still goes on to this day. It was the next season where things would take a turn. In Ja's sophomore year in the NBA, he only continued to grow as a player, but something was going to happen that was pretty interesting. The NBA would be implementing something new called the play-in tournament. This would basically give the 10 seed and the 9 seed a chance at making the playoffs, and the Grizzlies that year were sitting at the 9 seed. Now, one of the first play-in games was the Lakers going up against the Warriors, which would actually be one of the most entertaining games of the season. When it came down to it, the Lakers would win, and the Golden State Warriors would have to play another game in order to try to make the playoffs. Since the Warriors lost to the Lakers, they'd be having to play a young Grizzlies team that no one really thought had a chance of winning this game. I mean, come on, it's not like Steph Curry, who was playing like the MVP, is gonna lose to this young team.
Gets in the paint, stops, kicks it back out in the corner. Tillman for 3, puts it in! Foul, shot clock at 3. Morant gets inside, a little push shot is good. 4 to shoot. Morant makes his move, spins in the paint, turns, puts it up, puts it in!
Ja Morant would have one of the best games of his career, having about 35, 6 and 6, and Memphis would have the biggest upset in that play-in. They'd be playing the Jazz, who were the 1 seed, and they would win game 1, which gave them some momentum, but then they'd lose 4 straight. The following season, Ja Morant would be an all-star, and he would also be an all-NBA selection. That season, he would average about 27, 7 and 6. Now, what I thought was interesting is that he was actually an MVP candidate at one point. However, he only won the Most Improved Player of the Year award, which I thought was funny as hell. Now, it was in the playoffs when people started to not like the Grizzlies and Ja Morant. The reason being, in the Minnesota Timberwolves series, things got pretty hectic. The amount of trash talking that was going on was insane, especially because the Grizzlies really haven't done anything. Mind you, the Grizzlies were playing a 7-seed Timberwolves team that everyone knew they were better than. The Grizzlies would inevitably win the series, but then they would be playing the Warriors, where they would still continue to talk trash. Now, they would inevitably lose to the Golden State Warriors, who would go on to win the NBA title, but I am going to justify this, because Ja Morant did get injured in game 3, and the Grizzlies, well, they were not going to win without him, especially for the fact Ja Morant was averaging about 38 points per game. Even though the Grizzlies would lose, everyone knew that the following season things were going to get interesting. This team had some experience, and if they were able to extend Ja, it was going to be over. On July 6, 2022, Ja Morant was signed a 5-year extension with the Grizzlies. This deal would include $193 million of that money guaranteed. This would increase to a $231 million extension if he did make an All-NBA team. So the Grizzlies had their core again, and they were able to extend Ja Morant. It seemed like everything was going to go well for this team. They had some experience, but we only got a little bit of hint of what this Grizzlies team would be. So this season was going to be very telling of what the Grizzlies actually were. However, just 2 months later, things would already start to go downhill. In September 2022, Ja Morant was named a defendant in a lawsuit filed in Shelby County, Tennessee. In the suit, the plaintiff accused him of punching a 17-year-old male during a pickup basketball game. And during the pickup basketball game, Ja Morant and the 17-year-old got into a verbal altercation, and apparently the 17-year-old accidentally hit Morant. Morant would then punch the 17-year-old and knock him down to the ground, after which he struck him an additional number of times. When Morant was asked about the situation, he would claim self-defense, but I don't know how true that is. Now, this case would get re-brought up on March 1st, however, something happened again before that. On February 5th, 2023, The Athletic would release a report describing an altercation between associates of Morant and the members of the Pacers. The altercation would start in the Grizzlies and Pacers game when Chris Duarte and Andrew Nembhard would get into an altercation with Ja Morant and his father. It was so bad that one of Morant's associates would actually get removed from the game. After the game was over, apparently acquaintances of Morant aggressively confronted members of the Pacers party near the team bus. Later, a person in the SUV which Morant was riding in supposedly pointed a red laser at the bus. According to members of the Pacers, they believe the laser was attached to a gun. A Pacers security guard near the bus loading area remarked, "That's 100% a gun." Another person presented stated they felt we were in grave danger. Now, to be fair to Morant, the NBA actually did investigate this, and they didn't really have evidence. However, they did end up banning some people from the arena. Morant later posted a tweet on Twitter where he denied all allegations and clarified that Devontae Pack was banned from the Forum Arena. Now, remember the incident in September where he beat up a 17-year-old? Well, that would get brought back up to light on March 1st, 2023. The Washington Post released a report that further detailed the incident, and this is what we found out. After the altercation, Morant allegedly went inside his house and came out with a gun tucked in his waistband. The 17-year-old's mother later took the boy to the hospital and filed a police report. The police report also alleged that Morant had threatened a head of security at a mall located in Memphis, which apparently happened 4 days before the altercation with the 17-year-old. In the report, it claimed that Morant's mother got into a verbal altercation with an employee at Finish Line. She would then proceed to call Ja Morant for backup. Morant then entered the mall with an entourage of at least 9 people and was confronted by the head of security. Morant refused to leave the mall's parking lot, and authorities later arrived at the mall. As the group was leaving the premises, Morant allegedly stated, "Let me find out what time he gets off." A member of Morant's entourage allegedly pushed the head of security, who intended to file a report on the incident because he felt threatened. Now, all of this information started to come out, and a lot of people had a lot of things to say. For one, it seemed like Ja Morant was just being dumb, especially because he had all these opportunities to be great, and instead he wanted to do stupid shit. As the media is talking about him, as everyone is questioning Ja Morant's character, what do you think he did in this situation? I'd imagine he would try to apologize, or at least fix what's going on, or try to justify his actions. I mean, come on, it's not like you can make the situation any worse. On March 4th, Ja Morant would appear on an Instagram Live at 3:19 a.m. in a Colorado strip club. This would follow a loss to the Denver Nuggets as the Grizzlies would lose 113-97. Morant could be seen holding a handgun while rapping along with music at a strip club. As soon as he started to face a little bit of backlash, he would deactivate both his Twitter and his Instagram. He would then release a statement, but the damage had already been done. He would then release a statement, but this was not going to be enough. This incident would prompt the NBA to open up an investigation, which is currently going on right now. Ja is currently serving a 2-game suspension, but this is not going to be all that's done. Currently, the NBA is looking into a 50-game suspension. Now, some of you might say that this is crazy. Why would they suspend Ja Morant for having a gun on an Instagram Live? But it goes deeper than that. For one, the reason why a 50-game suspension is even being talked about is because he allegedly brought the gun on the team plane. And according to the NBA, bringing a gun on a team plane is a big no-no. Now, despite Ja Morant's 2-game suspension being over after tonight, we really don't know when he's going to come back. He said he was going to take some time away from the game and focus on himself, so we don't know how long that's going to be. Now, a lot of people have chimed in on the situation, Shannon Sharp and other members in the media, but someone that I thought was very ironic to comment on the situation was Gilbert Arenas. Yes, that Gilbert Arenas. During the 2009 season, Gilbert Arenas and Javaris Crinton were both suspended for the remainder of the season for bringing guns into the team locker room. It ended up being a 50-game suspension for Arenas. Now, of course, the situations are not the same, but it does give a little bit of context on how long the suspension can be. Now, do I think the NBA is going to implement a 50-game suspension? Well, actually, I think they will. We've seen the NBA isn't that shy of trying to make an example of players. The NBA does not want incidents like this happening, so I truly do believe they're going to use Ja Morant as an example. Although the NBA would be missing a lot without Ja Morant, I just don't think the NBA is scared to do something like this. The unfortunate reality is that Ja Morant is one talented player, but the problem is that if he keeps doing stupid shit like this, things might not end well for him. Sure, he went to a public school, but we really don't know his upbringing. We don't know exactly what Ja Morant is going through in the head. Some people have said it's a mental problem, but I really don't think it's that deep. I truly do believe that Ja Morant is just trying to play a character, which this is probably the wrong character to try to play. If he truly was from the hood, which I do not actually know if he was, that man has escaped that world. He's making over $200 million to play in the NBA. He's a great player and he has everything you could want. Yet for some reason, he is trying to enter himself back in that light. Some people claim it's Ja's parents' fault as they are enabling this type of behavior. And while this could be true to a degree, Ja Morant is his own man. He can make his own decisions. But right now, Ja Morant is deciding to spend his time as what could be a great NBA career and do stupid shit. Shannon Sharp had a really good point about the situation that I actually want to talk about. Shannon Sharp brought up the fact that Ja might be from the hood, but why would he try to go back? If you're going back to rebuild the place or help the people out, I can understand. But why would you try to act like a gangster when you're not? I know it's kind of popular to hate on Ja Morant right now and call him a cornball and post that 8 Mile TikTok, but at the end of the day, this is just stupid. I don't know what Ja Morant's going to be doing in his time while he figures things out, but I really do hope that he learns from his actions. He is a young player at the end of the day, and I think he still has a lot of growing to do. Not just as a player, but as a person. I know there are videos of Ja Morant doing a lot of good for his people, but at the end of the day, doing stuff like this is not going to help them. It's only going to hurt yourself. The reality is that most people try to be from the hood for whatever reason. Because if Ja Morant is truly about this life, you never know what's going to happen. Because there is a chance that someone could try to test Ja Morant and see if he's really about that. And the unfortunate reality is this could end in a very bad way. I wish the best for Ja Morant, and I hope after a month this video has really no relevance. I don't want to see a situation where Ja Morant is doing stupid shit again. At the time of recording this video, we do not know how long Ja Morant is going to be suspended for, but if he does get suspended, I hope this does teach Ja a valuable lesson and something like this never happens again.